Hey Raghunath, tell everyone about our Patreon community.
Sure, Kastuba. The Wisdom of the Sages Patreon community is an incredible online yoga resource. If you like the type of yoga wisdom and culture we share on the show, then our Patreon community is a great next step. This is a listener-supported podcast, and any level of sponsorship will unlock a wide range of live and archived classes, talks, and even workshops.
Raghunath teaches, I teach, and we have a host of other excellent teachers on topics ranging from yoga philosophy, asana classes, storytelling, Ayurveda, kirtan, cooking, meditation, and a lot more.
We even have an incredible online Bhakti 12-step recovery group.
So if you want to check it out, go to patreon.com/wisdom of the sages.
All right, let's get it on.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Live from Super Soul Farm, this is Wisdom of the Sages, a daily yoga podcast with your host, Raghunath, and your co-host and senior educator at the Bhakti Center, New York, Kastuba Das. Welcome to the show, everybody. Welcome to beautiful Sunday morning, sleep-in Sunday, where you get to sleep in a little bit more. I didn't sleep in. I went for a bike ride early morning today, Kastuba. It was good. I felt good. Felt empowered, came back, did puja, hung out with you. We talked, we laughed, we joked, we cried a little, and we laughed again. And now we're here. It's Q&A day today. We're live Q&A with all the teacher trainees. We had a great day last night. We had a great kirtan. Kate 108. Kaylee came over with Arjun. Arjun's famous because he's a great where are you going? Where are you going with that microphone? He's a great tabla player, huh? And I found out yesterday he's a hardcore kid. Everybody's a hardcore kid.
I didn't know that.
I didn't know that either, but he is. And he tours with Krishna Das, but we had a great was it a beautiful kirtan last night, everybody? Real nice to be there. And it was, I was looking at you in the back of the room because I was sitting up there and I was doing a little talking, and I just looked at the community. I looked at the 200s. I looked at the beauty going. Stu was standing in the back, and I felt like a connection. You looked right at me. And
Hold it.
We were looking at each other. Like, he looked at me, I looked at him, and we were just like feeling like
From across the room.
We were feeling like what is going on right now in culture is a good thing. There's a tsunami happening, a tsunami of bhakti. We see it locally, we see it on the outreach, and in that moment, maybe not externally, but internally, you and I were like embracing. Did you feel that?
I didn't feel that at all.
Because we were like we were happy, we were joyous, we were dancing together.
I'm not sure.
Anyway, today's Q&A day, live, and we're having just a great time here at this 200 hour in the Bhakti Yoga Farm stay here at Super Soul Farm, which is fun because people just coming and going and changing, and it's making the teacher training sort of ever fresh.
I realized something this morning is that this is similar to the farm stay is a similar formula to like when we were just in Austria, where it's like you go to this beautiful place. There's wonderful devotee association there. There's no schedule. You're just kind of free all day.
Well,
and then in the evening there's kirtan, but there's no real, you're not obliged to kind of show up for anything, and most of the day you're just kind of free to kind of unwind.
Well, the farm stay people can go to any of the classes of the teacher training, and oftentimes they do, but they're truthfully, it's sort of just downtime at the farm. You read, you chant, you jump in the pond, you lay in the creek.
That's what I mean. I think you need that, because even like, I think sometimes you had to blend that in, because even if you go to these nice weekend retreats and stuff, but they have these full schedules, you feel kind of like spiritually refreshed at the end, but you're still like busy all the time. You need a little unwinding time, and you can just come here, have great association, be in a beautiful place, have some kirtan, but just kind of unwind. I think it's a nice formula.
Yeah, it worked out well. We got a lot of our staples here. We got Lori Pag here, We got Amy Steller here. Yeah. We got the Bermans. It's great. It was a great idea. It was a last minute idea, and I'm going to take full credit for that.
Okay.
What kind of filter do we got on? What kind of face Photoshop filter we got on? My skin's never looked this weird and pimple free.
It's a different camera we're using today.
Oh, can we have a regular filter?
I don't think we have any filter on it. I can check.
It's a touch up my appearance filter. That's what's going on. I don't like it. I look too mannequin-y. There. Let them see me as I am.
Okay, why don't we get into the show, Raghunath?
All right. Miss Mara, do we have any announcements?
Back to your recovery group meetings at 9:30 a.m. and 7 p.m.
All righty. All right. Let's bring up our first. And our first is Mr. Matt from Albany. Come on down, Matt. Matt's one of our yoga farm stays. Let's dig into this guy's brain right now. So Matt, come on here. How the hell did you get here?
So
Right into the microphone. Remember, that's the rule.
Okay.
You can hold it too if you want.
I started going to a new Bhakti, not a Bhakti place, but a yoga place, which is a Bhakti yoga school. And I've been into Bhakti for a while via like YouTube videos. And I needed people to talk to about it to get more into it and just get some clarity on things. And actually, Kaylee told me about the podcast. I started listening. I heard about the farm stay, and I said, I got to go. So that's how I got here.
Where you were listening to the podcast and I announced it.
Exactly.
Pretty nice. Hey, by the way, we have what time is it? When does this training end? Friday? Yeah, if you any more farm stay people, reach out to supersoultrainings@gmail.com. I'm gonna a few more days left till Friday. Okay, sorry about that. And
That's all good. Okay, so my question is, how are Krishna, Ram, and Vishnu related?
good question. It's a simple question, but it's a good question. And people want to know that. It's like, I just want to pray to God. Why are all these gods? Can't we just have one God, please? Is that what you're feeling?
That's kind of it, because like I learned like Bhakti is about devotion to God and stuff like that. So I want to go straight to God, because like I learned like all problems can be solved at like higher spiritual levels. So I want to go to the highest level, which is God. But I hear there's Krishna, but then Krishna comes from Vishnu. So I'm like, and then there's Ram in there. So I'm like, which one do I do this for?
That's a great. He just wants to worship God. But can you help?
Point me in the right
Can just please? There's too many. It's okay. Okay, Costuba, please help.
Why don't you sit there? That way we can look at you and talk. Yeah. Good question. Good question. So we were, was it yesterday during the show? We're talking, or I forget who I was talking to. It may have been during the show yesterday, but we're saying how just broad this tradition is. I think it was yesterday during the show, was it? Talking about how broad it is. We were talking about Om. Were we talking about that? Yeah. How it's meant to appeal to people on all different, people of different varieties of faith, people coming from different directions. Now, even within that broad tradition, there's a very large branch of this tree of like the whole, if you want to call it Hinduism or the whole Indian Vedic presentation or culture. Within that, there's like a huge branch called Vaishnavism. And Vaishnavism are bhakti yogis. And Vaishnavas, literally, it's referring to the worshipers of Vishnu. But when we say Vishnu, we're not meaning just the four-handed Vishnu, but it's something we call Vishnu Tattva, or like the category of Vishnu. It means the category of God, the God who's the origin of all. But that one God appears in not just many varieties, but like practically unlimited varieties of ways. But certain appearances that God makes are very prominent. And if you go back, you can find that one form is the origin of all the other forms. Okay. And who is that form? Even within the authentic valid Vaishnava traditions, because even if you took that huge branch of Vaishnavas, you could divide into 4 important branches. And even amongst those 4 branches, there's some disagreement about who's the very origin. But Raghunath and I are coming in one particular branch, very important branch. And it is the branch that historically, although it's in one sense it's recent history, I think as the centuries go on, it'll be seen as a very important key part in history, where this tradition of Bhakti Yoga for the first time broke out of the borders of Southeast Asia or South Asia and reached to around the entire world. And that happened within the past 50 years. And it was one branch that did that. And that was this Gaudiya Vaishnava Madhva Brahma Sampradaya. I know that's a mouthful, but here's the point. The different scholars in these different branches of this lineage will have their reason why. One is saying Vishnu is the supreme origin, and all of the other avatars come through Vishnu. And other scholars just say, no, actually, Vishnu comes from Krishna. And when Krishna comes to earth, he kind of again comes through Vishnu, but that's a little technical, and I won't get too into that. But here's the presentation that's made in our lineage. Here's the idea. Then this is key. And I feel if you get this, you really everything kind of snaps into place. That is that the form of Krishna is a form that can reciprocate with all varieties of love. When you come to Krishna, you can love Krishna with awe and reverence. You can love him like most people, when they conceive of God, you think of God as the creator of the universe. God is the one that's maintaining the universe. If I see God, well, I have to think I'm very small and God is incredibly huge. And that is reality. But that is the relationship between us and Lord Vishnu, right? It's Vishnu is an expansion of this Krishna who is creating and maintaining not just this universe, but unlimited universes. So when you approach Vishnu, it is with this awe. How can you be everywhere at one time? How can you be in everything and everything be in you? It's blowing my mind, So that's Vishnu. But Krishna, he's not interested in maintaining universes. He's too busy. What's he busy with? His only interest, the only thing that captivates him is loving adventure, right? That's what he does all day, every day. That's his interest. And so when it comes to, so he's ready to reciprocate with unlimited varieties of love. Happy to. But if somehow the individual soul, people like us, feel like we want to experience life independently of that, then we can enter into the material realm with its unlimited universes. And it's not Krishna that's going to come and maintain all that. He's too busy with his loving adventure. He expands as Lord Vishnu. And then through Lord Vishnu, he expands and he comes back. He enters into this world in a variety of ways, like, for instance, like Lord Ram. Okay. Now, Krishna is going to appear in all these different forms. He's Vishnu with certain business to take care of. He's Lord Ram with something to show the universe. He'll come as Lord Nrsingadev and manifests another mood. He'll come in so many different varieties of ways. And people may feel a particular inclination towards one of those particular forms, and that's beautiful and that's fine. But in our lineage, here's the point: the scholars in our tradition have kind of shown, and they've made very, very almost like lawyers. Like you put together all the evidence, you link it up, and you present an argument. Not an argument meaning like a heated, angry argument, but an argument like here's the presentation of how it all works. And they've shown this progression in the Vedic literature from the 4 Vedas, which teach how to enjoy this world in a pious way, to the Upanishads, which teach how to renounce this world, to the Mahabharata and Bhagavad Gita, which begin to point to bhakti as the highest human endeavor, ultimately to the Srimad Bhagavatam, which takes bhakti and explains it in far greater depth. And in bhakti, right in the beginning of the first canto, there comes a very important verse. And early on, the Bhagavatam, if you really understand what's going on here, it's so fascinating that it starts with these sages in the forests of Naimisharanya, confused. It's like it's a group of people that are very deep into this tradition, very pure in their lifestyle and in all of their habits and their spiritual practices, but still confused how to make sense of it all, just like your question itself. So they turn to one speaker amongst them all who they agree is particularly qualified to answer these questions. And they begin to ask about what's the highest goal in life? What leads to the deepest satisfaction? What's there for the greatest benefit of mankind? And they also begin to ask about Krishna. And tell us about Krishna too. Like, there's something about him that seems to be very important in this whole equation. And so Sudha Goswami, the sage that they've asked, he begins to describe all the different avatars, all the different incarnations, and they're going to be fluffed out and their stories will be told as we go through Bhagavatam. But after he comes to the end of the list, he says a very famous verse, Ete Changsa Kala Pungsa Krishna Stu Bhagavan Svayam. But that Krishna, sweet baby Krishna, that boy Krishna, who we're going to hear the whole 10th canto, which is massive, far bigger than any other canto in the Bhagavatam, is Krishna's life, right? So we're going to hear a lot about Krishna. And he's saying, when we're going to hear about him, he's not going to sound like Lord Vishnu. He's not going to be this person like the universes are coming out of his skin, and he's entering into it's. He's not that God that people think of when they think of God. When you see his pastimes, he appears like some kind of charming boy that's running around with girls, that's all caught up in love. He's being pampered by his adoring mother, who's just running after him, saying, hey, you before you run off to play with your friends, make sure you take more food with you, because you're totally dependent on my caring for you, right? She couldn't have that relationship with Lord Vishnu. How do you care for Lord Vishnu? He's supporting everything. But when you see Krishna in that little form, it's bringing out the deepest love, deeper and more intense than the love that the great devotees of Lord Vishnu feel. And so it's that form from which everything comes. It's that form of Krishna which can reciprocate with all forms of love and which expands in unlimited ways. Again, there's going to be other very legitimate lineages that are going to disagree with that. That's okay. We have our reasons why we believe that and why that makes most sense. So that's you could go into it more, but that's in general, would be my short answer.
I'll give you a shorter answer. Just worship Krishna, stop shopping. It's all covered. Okay.
I hope that was
okay. Yes. Who's next? It's Myra. Come on down, Myra from Houston, Texas. Cowgirl up here, Myra. How are you? Myra's here doing the 200-hour training. What's your story? How'd you get here? How'd you get to the training? Hold on a second here. You got to talk. You hold the mic. You talk right into it. Put your mouth right on it.
Where am I? Where are we? Hello, everyone. So I found you, Raghu, on YouTube. So I wanted to understand the Gita a little bit more. And so I searched on YouTube, and you came up with Joe Rogan, and I watched this clip, and I guess I signed up to your newsletter. This was like 2.5 years ago, and I've been getting your Super Soul newsletter for some time.
You actually have a newsletter that goes out like on a regular basis?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do, my friend.
Can't believe it.
And so I got the email a few weeks ago for this 200-hour training, and I was like, "Ooh, this is interesting." So I feel like a seed was planted a few years ago, and it's growing.
If you want to get on my mailing list, go to raghunath.yoga and subscribe.
Okay, well, thank you so much.
Can we get through one question without a plug?
Okay, so my question is, so we were talking about programming the other day. Yes, and the mind. Yeah. So if the material world is illusion and you are of the world, let's say, and I am of the world, are we able to have relationships rooted in sincere love, or are we relating to each other from a place of delusion, distortion?
Excellent question.
Great question. Great question. It's interesting because in the illusion, what is spiritual life? Spiritual life is reality. Spiritual life is divinity is the center. Illusion is I'm the center. So even though we talk about, this romantic love, unconditional love, it's not really available here with unconditional love because we are conditioned beings. So even love in the material platform, or what we call in the show, we call love with a small L, is always a lowercase L, is always got rooted in some selfishness. It's not that unconditional. Prabhupada would say the closest thing is a mother's love for a child. But we're always looking for that unconditional love. And that's available through capital L love for the jiva to reconnect with source. That being said, even though we are going through this world, bumping into people looking for people to validate us, appreciate us, if not worship us, and then we call them friends. And if they don't validate us, if they don't think we're cool, they become our enemies. If they criticize me, they become my enemies. Even though that's there, if you find people who are endeavoring together to try to find source, that is the threshold or the gateway to a real relationship. That's the threshold. Why? Because it's no longer based on the illusion. So another analogy would be sometimes in a dream, sometimes dreams are nonsense. Does anybody have a little kid? Hey, Dad, have you ever had a little kid that comes up to you? Amy Steller did it to me today, and I quickly shut her down. She's like, "Oh my God, I had this dream about wisdom of the sages, but it wasn't wisdom of the sages. This is something like my." I love you, Amy Steller, but like yeah, because sometimes a 5-year-old will come up to you and like, "Dad, I had a dream. Let me tell you my dream. I was on a horse, and the horse was going backwards," and you're like, "Please don't tell me your dream. Please, it's going to go on forever. It's going to have no answer to it." And so sometimes dreams are just bizarre things that make no sense. They have no storyline. There's no arc in the story, and it just ends abruptly. And it's just like nonsense. Material existence can be like that, isn't it? Sometimes our whole life is like, what have I done in this life? It's just like a bunch of nonsense and ups and downs. There was no arc. There was no meaning. But in the same sense, have you ever had a dream, Mara? Have you ever had a dream that there's some clarity, or there's some truth, or there's some realization, or there's some direction, or somebody gives you some information? I've had dreams like that, spiritual dreams, and you wake up, you're like, yes, I must do that. Or you hear, sometimes a dream can touch reality, and this is what we are doing with satsang. Satsang means we come together in a group. This is our party. That's what a party is. You come together with a group of people, but we talk about sat and not asat. We talk about eternal things, not temporary things. When you talk about eternal things, then all of a sudden we're reconnecting in the dream, in the illusion, with an eternal spiritual life. And that's what we have in common with everybody, even your greatest enemy. Boom! I hit this one on the head. What do you think? I think I got this one.
I think you did too. You're reminding me of an article that I read in The Onion one time.
It's the Onion. What is it? It's like a joke.
It's like a satirical kind of newspaper, I suppose. But it was Martin Luther King. I had the weirdest dream. I was I was in Yankee Stadium, but it wasn't Yankee Stadium. But you know what you just said there right now. It has, if love is unconditional, we'll love everyone. Like when our love is full, like we talked to the mother's love for a child, right? So the mother loves a child, even if the child, say the child is born with some deformity, something like that, mother still loves the
Or
child.
commits a crime.
Say the child commits a crime, mother still loves the child. Say the child rejects the mother, mother still loves the child. There's nothing external there that is going to block that mother's, because there's no condition.
Like a good mother. We're just preface that with a good mother. Do you think? What do you think? Like a
Bad mothers?
like a mass murderer. Do you think their mother loves them?
They do.
They do. They does. Brandy's like, yes. How do you know? You know,
I have one.
I have it. Hare Krishna.
So this is a clue. In other words,
Mrs. Mussolini. How is she feeling?
Mama Mussolini.
Mrs. Mao, Mama Mao, Mama Stalin. What's she think? What's my son doing?
I can't comment on them, but the point being that a mother's love is it really probably is the closest thing that we see to unconditional love. And unconditional love, it means real love. In other words, basically your question was, are our loving, quote unquote, loving relationships in this world, are they real, or are they entirely superficial? And I would say, it's a gradation, but the pure that our love becomes, the freer that our love becomes of conditions, the more that we're loving not just this one particular object, but we're loving everyone, because we're recognizing the spirit underneath the body, right? The conditions are external things, how you look, like that's the most superficial, right? Like, I fell in love with that girl, I never fall in love with that girl, based just on bodily appearance. Then there's behavior, then there's other qualities and so on that become condition, that are the conditions by which we accept love or we feel love. Unconditional love means there are no external conditions that will prevent me from feeling that love. If that's the case, then why don't we love every single living being? And this is where spiritual knowledge kind of kicks in, that I recognize, even when we say namaste, right? The divinity in me, or that divine spiritual essence of me, respects the divine spiritual essence of you, not beyond the body, beyond race, beyond gender, beyond species. There is a spark of spiritual energy that is of the same quality in every living being, regardless of the conditions. That's real love. So I read this once. I really got to go back and find this book, but it was in that, find this quote, but it was in that book that I have a book of, I think it's called A Calendar of Wisdom, from Leo Tolstoy, which was like a collection of quotes that he was into. And some of them may have been his own quotes as well, and other than quotes that he collected from different sources. But I always remember one of them made this point that when you really love, then you love everyone. You love, you see, because commonly, like when we speak about love, like, why do you love this person? Well, they're different than everybody else. No. Then that's actually not love. When you actually love, you're loving what's the same in everyone. Otherwise it's conditional love, right? Why do you love this person? Oh, they're different than everyone. Oh, those are the conditions, right? Unconditional love means I love everyone regardless of the conditions. Well, if you're going to love that, then you love everyone. That's spiritual. And that's the vision. That's the love of the saint, of the sadhu, that they can actually love every living being. It's a rare thing. That's a rare thing. That's a goal. That's a life goal right there, to come to that stage. And when you meet someone like that, they make people feel different. You know, they
That was
in that sangha.
That was my 14-year-old experiment. Remember?
If your girlfriend
She lost all her
Fell
limbs.
off or
Yeah, her
something?
her ears fell off. Is my love limb dependent? Like if she had no limbs, would I still love her? Like if you take away, you start cutting away pieces of her body.
This is getting a little dark.
Well, I just mean it's like, what do you love? What do you love? Or what if they're like, oh, you know what? They come into school the next day and you're like, you know what? I've decided to be a neo-Nazi. What do you think about that? Where's your conditional love?
Yeah. Do you still love them? Even,
Right.
You're not loving their Nazi affiliation, but loving them. What was this girl's name?
No, I mean, I was just thinking.
What was her name?
There was no particular person. I was just
Are you sure?
just trying to examine when we say we love a person, what's it based on? That's okay. It was one of my early realizations in spiritual life. Thank you very much. Good question. All right. Thank you, Maya. Thank you, Myra. Oh, Myra. Yes. Live from Israel. Bring it down.
Hello. Welcome, Nina. So happy to see you. We got together in Italy. No, we got together in Eco Village.
Yeah.
Yeah. And now you've come from Israel.
Yeah.
Right into
You got to tell us about yourself, how you got listening to the show, what's a little bit about your backstory, how you ended up in Israel, etc.
Oh wow, I don't even have to bend down.
No.
So it's a long story how I got here. Basically, I met you, Raghunath, many years ago when I used to teach yoga here in the US. Kind of forgot about you, and then sorry, kind of forgot about devotee. I also met some other devotees, but and then I guess a series of kind of psychedelic experiences led me, not all chemically induced, led me, some of them perhaps, kind of brought me back to Bhakti and listening to the podcast. So my question is something that I've been wondering for myself, but also because I've been contending with, or had a lot of contact with people who are contending with a lot of physical disabilities recently. And I guess I'm wondering, how do you, I would like to provide them with some comfort along with myself. No. But yeah, so I was wondering how to kind of accept some difficult karma without kind of pushing the emotions under the rug and letting yourself experience whatever the thing is supposed to teach you emotionally.
Let me see if I understand the question correctly. So you're engaging with people that have some difficult physical disabilities, and that even just that itself can be emotionally hard to deal with on a daily basis. You want to be able to operate in that environment without some form of repression, some form, without shutting something in yourself down so that you can deal with it.
So it's more that I want to provide them with comfort if I can, because I know that for me, Bhakti provides a lot of comfort. But also, even within myself, I'm curious more, how do you deal with just accepting whatever karma, whatever Krishna gives you, that might be difficult, and still kind of let yourself process these things emotionally?
Raghunath, that's a good question. Everybody, here's a question. Difficult question.
Why are you giving me the mic for the difficult questions? How would you capsulize that?
How would I answer it?
No, how would you rephrase, put the question in the most simplest way?
That's what I just tried to do, but I'll try again. So it's an environment that she wants to serve in, where people are suffering from different. I've said this kind of thing on the show before, but actually, people that do that kind of service, they really have my highest admiration. I don't see myself doing it. I don't see myself having the tolerance to particularly people like when it's their occupation every day, they're dealing with something really difficult like that. I really do admire the selflessness of people that take up these kind of services, but at the same time, it can wear you down, and it can and make you feel like and maybe I even have to go into like a robotic kind of mode. Is your question? It's something I need to shut down if I'm going to be able to actually do this service. Is there a way I can do this service without shutting anything down, with feeling what I meant to feel, growing through it, without some kind of building some kind of steel barriers that are protecting me? So my first thoughts are beyond what I just shared about my appreciation of people that serve that way. Spiritual knowledge is the key. Spiritual knowledge is the key to get us through this life in such a way that we can interpret every experience in a way where it becomes positive, through which we grow, rather than it become binding us in some way or dragging us down. There's always spiritual knowledge is the key to give us the perspective that we need. Now, I would imagine someone operating in those realms, they're going to need support, emotional support through loving relationships and so on. They're going to need breaks, probably time to let go and unwind and refresh before going back in. I'm sure people that people with, I'm not experienced in these realms, and there are people that could give good advice on how to do that, but my field is this Bhagavad Gita and Bhagavatam and all that. And from that, I think that the way that our evolution works in this world is, some of it is, I don't know if this is really the right word, but like ugly, in the sense that there's a certain grind. Sometimes it's a slow grind, that when we become eager, when we say, you know what, I believe that I am more than this body and this mind. I believe that my existence is far beyond this very temporary circumstances that we're all playing around with in this world. I believe that there is a higher, deeper spiritual love that exists beyond all this, beyond time, beyond space, that I'm meant to be experiencing, and I'm somehow trapped, and I want to break free of the trap. When we make that determination, then what we have to, at that point, we're on the right track. And then the divine help is that let me give this sincere person the experiences that they need, through which they will let go entirely, because they haven't let go entirely yet. And often that looks like this grind, this slow grind, that grind may be physical maladies. It may be relationship related. It may have to do with our finances and our comforts, or so many different things. And it may have to do with the human experience that we witness on a daily basis. And so if you're performing some kind of service where you're exposed to some harsh life realities, the perspective coming from Bhagavad Gita and Bhagavatam, the bhakti perspective, can help one. There's an optimistic side to it, can help one understand that there's a spirit within this body that is temporarily in an apparently unfortunate circumstance, but that this is just a moment in their existence too. It's something that all living beings go through, and they're going through it right now. I've been through it. Everybody's been through it. That helps you also see them not in a judgmental way, but with a spiritual equality, samadarshana we call it. But so that's the optimistic end. And then that's the spiritually optimistic end. And the materially pessimistic end is, this world is not our home. This world is binding us in so many ways, so many misfortunes, so many forms of suffering that we go through here. Let us all become determined to let it go of all of it. That really deeply, deeply, deeply have this feeling, this world is not my home, and deepen that conviction. There's some thoughts.
Yeah. So for both the subject and the caretaker, they both have to deal with these. You're asking for the caretaker, correct? Or you're asking for the subject? Right. So they're both going to have to deal with the resentment of the situation in the material world. And it's just the statement, or your question rather, brings up, okay, while I'm healthy, while life is relatively good, we should work with these little mini resentments we get, these little mini blames we get where we blame the world. Oh, this is unfortunate, and they're being a jerk to me. And it sets us up for this, like we talk about, a radical responsibility for what's going on, where it actually frees us from harboring anger, hate, spite, desire for revenge, etc., which haunts the pure spirit soul, which haunts the jiva. And if we can do it while we're healthy, while things are looking up, but there's still this jerk, this guy who's like a human thorn in my side, then when we're in like extreme situations where everything is going south in our life, this is our test in this lifetime. Can I be in samadhi, so to speak? Can I be very God conscious, Krishna conscious, Christ conscious, whatever you want to call your connection? Can I be that in the midst when everything, and it's amazing when you meet a person like that. They're not feeling good in their situation, but they're not of the situation. So the best thing we could do was Stu was saying, we got to frame it out. We got to frame it out for them. And sometimes people can't hear it. It's like, sometimes people, I can't put my Stu, but you got to just start learning to forgive people. You just shut up. The last thing I want to hear is good advice when I'm miserable. But that's why we have to train ourselves when things are good. And that's what we do every day. We train ourselves because guess what? The bottom's going to drop out sooner or later and things are going to go south. And we have to be prepared for that. So the best thing we could do for the subject or for the caretaker and for the people who are needing the care is we hear on a regular basis wisdom, truth, and things start to say. Now, of course, I'm going to fight it off. Who do you think you are telling me you don't know my story? How dare you say that to me? I get that. We all feel entitled to be joyful and happy and free. Guess what? We're not entitled to anything. Nobody owes us anything. Okay? I wasn't asked to be born. Yes, you were. If you were, that's our theory. You were asked to be born. You still asked to be born by your choices. We want to continue with material existence, but we're resentful and angry and pissed off. So the best thing we could do is hear this stuff in a sober state of mind, and that will take us throughout all this pain. We'll embrace that radical responsibility. We'll stop blaming. And once we do, we immediately become relieved from mental anguish. So it is sort of hard when people are in a situation. That's why they say people of the earthly planetary systems can take to bhakti so easily. That's why we were saying in the Bhagavatam, that's why the demigods are jealous, because it's not just people who are suffering tremendously. There's also a massive maha problem with those who have a silver spoon in their mouth or a gold spoon in their mouth. They're born like that. Why? Because the world is great. Everything's great. What do you mean the world's in pain? Everything's perfect. That's a problem for your spiritual life because there's no impetus sometimes. So there's a constant grind maybe for those struggling in the material world. There's also a constant grind for those who are materially blessed, so to speak. But the grind's a different way. It becomes like sort of an exhaustion and a constant search for how can I turn it up now? Okay, I've got this. I've tried this type of sense gratification. What can I do next? It's almost like an exhausting of good karma. And it's a grind because if there's no substance or direction or meaning in your life, it's another type of grind that leaves a person sort of like empty inside. Most of us are in a good place where we get a fair share of slaps and strokes in our life, right? Give you a little stroke, a little slap, just a little slap, but it's fair. It's fair.
Was it? I didn't want the stroke or the slap, actually.
So while we're here, you take it back. So while we're here, let's just try to become very God conscious as soon as we can. Thanks for the question. I hope that was useful. Okay, we got time for one more. Who's one more on the list? And it looks like it's Miss Stephanie Berman from Brooklyn. Come on down, Stephanie. Oh, the Bermans from Brooklyn. Now you are in, what are you in? Advertising, marketing, Stephanie? Advertising. Come on down.
Advertising.
Okay, now you got to hold the microphone. Tell your story, how you got here. You've been on the show before, but tell us a story. How about what you like about Bhakti? Your husband said something really nice. He said, I like the people. I like the community. And what else did he say?
That was on yesterday's show, right? And like the people, and it answers our questions or something.
Good food. I can't remember something like
It
that.
makes sense, I think he said, and
Okay.
good people.
Okay.
Yeah, I am so grateful for it, because I think when I was young, like really into the microphone, when I was young, I had belief and a spiritual tradition, but had drifted away from that for decades. And through my yoga practice and meeting you initially, Kastuba, and then Raghu doing the training with you, slowly I started to, take on more of the teachings and dive a little deeper. And I've had some really strong signals, evidence, and improvements in my life due to this tradition and the teachings that have really helped me at this point in my life, I think, start to, chart a path for continued learning and growth where I was probably stagnating.
Beautiful. I could just say, 1 year we had one of Stephanie's friends, who came to the Eco Village with us and studied with us. And when I came back, I knew that he was in advertising. And for the Bhakti Center, I said, you know what, everything that we do is like totally amateur. We're just trying to figure it out on our own. Why don't I give Pro a call and see if he might be able to. So I was just looking for a few words of advice or something like that. And Pro said, well, why don't you bring your team down to our offices? And we walked in there and it was like, oh, he's the vice president of this massive advertising award-winning firm. And then he brought in Stephanie, who was like I think you're like the creative director and partner in the firm, right? And they really just treated us so well. And they came in there and everything they said, they just knew exactly what questions asked, and they understood everything we needed to know. And then they just really went out of their way to really take care of us in so many ways. So Stephanie has been a real blessing in our lives.
Yeah, they're like real people with real careers, Kastuba, not like you.
Even that. No, but even that, they're like real people with like a real high level and very, great, very skilled and knowledgeable people. So anyway, thank you for everything, Stephanie.
A pleasure and an honor. So I have a question. And it's about decision making. So when you find yourself at a crossroads, how do you hear the cues about which direction to take? Sometimes it's more obvious in terms of choosing the path that's aligned to your values and the growth that you need to experience. Other times, much less so. And so can you talk about how you call for strong guidance? And importantly, how do you recognize it when it arrives?
Good question. Raghunath? Hey,
That was a great question. And you got to be careful with this too, because a lot of people say, you got to trust your instinct, trust and that sounds like a spiritual statement, like trust your instinct, trust your gut. Don't trust your gut. We say, don't be careful with trusting your gut, because sometimes our gut is based on our personal ambition, our desires, our material, our agenda, our mind. Sometimes it's based on our anxiety, our fears. Sometimes it's based on our lust, or our greed. So be very, very careful when you say, I'm going to trust my instinct. There is a super soul. There is, God in the heart speaking to us, giving us direction, giving us advice. But we oftentimes can't hear that advice because we're covered by a material agenda. So your question is great because it's actually everything we're doing. You guys are tuning into this podcast on a regular basis, a lot of you. And what we're doing is we're trying to clear that blockage. We're trying to get the reception on the radio to the Paramatma. Right now, I'm getting static. I'm getting mixed channels. I'm getting some foreign language going on. But I got to click into that clear tone of Lord Vishnu's voice speaking to me and directing me. That's what we do with hearing the Bhagavatam on a regular basis. That's what we do when we chant the Maha Mantra on japa. That all that work in sadhana bhakti is fine-tuning the radio to get to the station. And sometimes I can't, sometimes I'm just reckless driving all over the road. So eventually our sadhana bhakti says, no, hold the wheel like this. These drivers, when you're doing a student driver, there's 2 steering wheels. Because when you know what I'm talking about? There's 2 steering wheels, or he has an extra set of brakes just in case you go rogue on the road. They're like, no, we're going to pull it back. So we have sadhana bhakti is like that driver's ed teacher who is helping us stay on the road because we're so reckless. I think it's safe to say, raise your hand if you've ever been a little reckless in your life. Okay, it's unanimous. You have not.
I keep saying that, man. To go back into our youth and
Okay,
right.
Okay, so if we've been a little reckless, right? Sadhana bhakti keeps us on track, keeps the wheels on the road, and with the appropriate guardrails, etc. So eventually, right? And if you're bicycle riders, eventually, if you get ride at a bike, you can start to let go of the handlebars, right? So in the same way, eventually, after a practice of spiritual practice, it starts to change your thoughts. We start to think different. We start to act different. We start to behave different. We start to treat people differently. And eventually, through the practice of sadhana bhakti, regular spiritual practice, it starts to become us. We've changed. We've transformed. And when we let go of the wheels, so to speak, then all of a sudden we are still staying on the road. And then it's like the same readings of Lord Vishnu is coming out of our mouth. It's in our thoughts. That's why sometimes people practice for bhakti for a long time, and you ask them some advice, or they start speaking, and they're speaking like words of wisdom. And it's got nothing to do with your intellect too. You don't have to be the smartest guy in the world, because it's already woven into your thoughts and your understanding of reality, etc. So in the practice stage, learning how to drive the car, learning how to ride the bike, we have that driver's ed teacher, etc. So what's going to happen is we turn to the Vaishnavas. We turn to the people practicing who've been driving that car longer than we have. And we say, what do you think about this? I'm at a fork. What do you think I should be at this fork? Oftentimes I find on my speed dial of people that I choose, they don't even have speed dial anymore, do they? The speed is right. They have favorites. They don't have speed dials. That's favorites. It's called favorites. Am I on your favorite list? I'm just curious. I'm serious. I better be. Number 2 under his wife. You're on my favorites. That's nice. I feel better about my life. You're one of my favorites too. I just want you to know that this was a lot right now. That was a lot for me. That's going to make my day.
Are you going to continue answering?
I don't even know where we am. I'm just feeling our love. That's what I'm feeling right now. So anyway, where was I, Stephanie?
I'll take over. You did great with that, right? You did great. I was just going to add to your perfect answer. A couple thoughts. One, have you read Mahabharata before? It's something worth getting into. We'll get you a good edition. But the character there that I suppose if I had to pick one character as my favorite, it's Yudhishthir, Arjuna's older brother. So he's the leader of the Pandavas. He's known as like being the embodiment of Dharma. A lot of the Mahabharata has to do with challenges put before Yudhishthir and his struggle to do the right thing. Not struggle to like act ethically, but struggle to know what's right. And and because he's considered to be like a manifestation of the probably like the personification of Dharma, it's illustrating that none of us should feel too convinced that we necessarily know what's right, because Yudhishthir is struggling with it. Yudhishthir is a person with tremendous self-discipline and introspection. Still, he's struggling. So that's the nature of life in this world, is that it's not always easy to know what the best thing to do is. So we need to come to terms with that first. But then we see how he seeks counsel, and this is a principle that's taught by the great teachers in this line, in this lineage, that yes, God is in our heart. Yes, there is a voice there that we should be trying to become more in tune with. How do we become more in tune with that? It means we have to set aside all, I suppose you could call it like personal motivation, but like all separate motivation. Any motivation separate from that completely reconnecting. Like, in other words, do I really want to hear that voice or not? Maybe we all have some experience when there's someone in our life that wants our validation for their decision, but doesn't really want to hear our entire our entire opinion. They want to hear some. So is our relationship with God in the heart like that? We want to purify that entirely, so that your will is my will. It's said that that we can, that those that are becoming in tune, those that are walking the path, well, they're listening for that voice within, and they're having it confirmed without. And having it confirmed without means that they are finding those people that are tuned in, and sincerely inquiring from them. And there's an authentic way, like within this Vedic tradition, there's a lot about this whole dynamic of someone going to a guru type figure and inquiring from them. All the texts are based on that. What is Bhagavad Gita? Arjuna inquiring from Krishna. What are the Upanishads? It's disciples, asking gurus questions. That is basically the fabric of all of this literature, is this inquiry. And so how does that come down into like life in India, like, say, like there's so much of that, but how sincerely are we actually following it? That we want to feel like, yeah, I'm that inquirer, like in the books, but there's a when it's done in the authentic way, there's a certain caliber of questioning, and what makes it real is the sincere willingness to mold one self to the advice that one gets, right? Because like some people will ask the question, but if they like the answer, then they'll embrace it, and if they don't like the answer, then they'll. But you don't ask the question of that person unless there's some willingness to really hear what they have to say. that dynamic is if we can learn that, then we can get some really good guidance in our life. Here's one principle that I keep in mind when it comes to those big decisions, like those kind of like fork in the road, life altering decisions, because that's what we go through in life, right? Sometimes in life you have to walk through a door and there's kind of no turning back, or if turning back becomes really problematic. Like if I go through that door, that's kind of like my life just starts to go in that marriage, things like that, especially. But those big decisions that once one's deep into bhakti yoga, then you embrace this principle. I don't make those big decisions without receiving blessings, without it being blessed by people that I really have some trust in. It doesn't mean that it really doesn't mean that like you're like now some kind of codependent, weak person. It actually is strength. It means that if I get a consensus from these people that, one, I really respect, and that respect is earned through their words, through their lifestyle. I see they're really onto something. Then it's a strength to be able to say, if they tell me something I don't want to hear, I have the strength to actually overcome my lower nature and make that hard step. Maybe I don't like it, but the more I consider it, these people are right, and they are blessing, or they're not blessing a decision that I made. Each one of them is saying, I think there's a problem with this decision that you want to make. There's a lot of trust that has to be there for that to be there. But I find people that live their life that way, I see them moving always in a straight line, and other people I see who don't take those kind of, even people that we know that are deep into this practice for years, even born into it, we can see some of them, even with like really important aspects of their life, they do not want to hear the message that everybody else is getting. Sometimes this is like in terms of like money and occupation and things like that. And everybody's saying, hey, what you're doing is unethical. Hey, what you're doing is not right. And they're just giving every excuse and they don't want, even they'll pose like, hey, I really want to hear what you have to say. And they're not hearing, So I think a lot of it has to do with us opening up to hear truth. A lot of it has to do with really, really being open to hearing the truth and being able to follow what's right. Sometimes, and that's part of that grind in life too. That if I make this decision, it's the right decision, but it's a little hard. I may have to give up something. I may have to give up some comfort. I might have to give up something that I'm holding on to that I think I need, let go of it. That's a challenge, but I suppose that kind of thing is what makes a lot of these decisions difficult. I think we're over time.
Yeah, I think we're good. Stephanie Berman, great question. I want to thank the Bermans for the Berman show today, this weekend. I want to thank everybody from the 200 and our farm stay guests. If you're interested in farm stay, reach out to Mara at supersoultrainings@gmail.com. And another weekend for the books, Kostuba. And tomorrow we're starting at 6 a.m. We're back at 6 a.m. Tonight, we're going to do tonight, Kostuba? We're going to watch Hare Krishna, the movie.
Excellent movie.
Excellent movie. We're going to watch that here on the big screen. The proper use of this dumb screen in the house. And what are we doing? Skip the ads. How do you do this? Anyway, I want to thank everybody. I want to really thank everybody who supports us with Patreon. It makes a lot. It's a community supported podcast. For everyone who does that, it means a lot to us. Is how we keep this going. And if you like what we're doing, and if you think we're worth a few dollars, you can throw it our way. Go to patreon.com/wisdom of the sages. Thanks so much, everybody. Thanks to everybody who follows us. Share this with friends. It's Kali Yuga. People need some light in the darkness of this world. Share it with friends. Spiritual knowledge is the highest welfare work you could do for someone, because it frames out all their other pains that are generally based on mind, body, and ego. Spiritual knowledge is the solution for material problems. Thanks everyone for joining us. It's a beautiful day for today. Let the world become magical. Claim yourself as a pure spirit soul. Happy Bo! There they are. There they are. And locals, we're doing kirtan every day this week at 7:30. Come on down. Kirtan and satsang, storytelling at Super Soul Farm. Come as our guest, Harry Bowl. Radhe